Ork Shokk Attack Gun. Out of all the terrifying weapons in Warhammer 40k, nothing perfectly captures the setting's mixture of cosmic horror and absurdity quite like the Ork Shokk Attack Gun. It is by far the reigning champion and one of the most ridiculous weapons ever created in Warhammer 40k. Built by wildly unstable orc mech boys, the weapon looks like a pile of scrap metal, spinning engines, fuel tanks, wires, and barely controlled energy generators bolted together into something that should not logically function at all. Unlike normal weapons, the Shokk Attack Gun does not fire bullets, rockets, or plasma. Instead, it briefly tears open a tiny tunnel through the warp itself, the nightmarish alternate dimension used for faster-than-light travel and inhabited by demons and psychic horrors. The ammunition is usually living snotlings, small and miserable greenskin creatures that orcs barely consider important. The mechboy stuffs these terrified creatures into the weapon's firing chamber before activating the gun. A violent burst of warp energy then hurls the screaming snotlings through the immaterial realm at impossible speed before ejecting them directly into enemy positions. The journey is so traumatizing that the snotlings completely lose their minds, arriving at the destination in a state of pure, murderous, psychotic panic. Because warp travel is dangerously unstable, the results are wildly unpredictable. Sometimes the snotlings appear inside armored bunkers or sealed tanks, immediately attacking everyone around them in blind panic. In other cases, they materialize inside a target's armor, causing chaos as the victim is suddenly attacked from within. The fun part is, of course, the gun routinely backfires, vaporizing the orc firing it or teleporting a screaming snotling directly into the mech boy's own trousers. It is wild and completely suicidal. It perfectly represents orc technology, strange yet somehow effective through sheer violence and luck. Sonic Blaster. For the noise marines of the Emperor's Children, war is no longer about strategy or conquest, but about overwhelming sensation. These corrupted Chaos Space Marines have devoted themselves completely to Slaaneshi, the chaos god of excess and obsession. Over thousands of years, they transformed warfare into a nightmarish performance of sound, pain, and sensory overload through their signature weapon, the Sonic Blaster. This is a specialized firearm built around devastating sonic technology. Instead of firing conventional ammunition, the weapon unleashes concentrated waves of destructive sound capable of rupturing flesh, shattering armor, and liquefying internal organs. The origins of these weapons trace back to the Horus Heresy, when elements of the Emperor's Children became obsessed with increasingly extreme sensory experiences. Their experiments with sound and psychological warfare eventually evolved into sonic weaponry used by noise marines in the modern era. When sonic blasters fire together, the battlefield becomes a wall of vibrating pressure and deafening noise. Bones crack under the force of the sonic waves. Blood vessels burst beneath the skin. Enemy soldiers may collapse before even understanding what hit them as their nervous systems are overwhelmed by impossible levels of sound. Many noise marines modify their armor with amplifiers, vox systems, and demonic augmentations that magnify the destruction even more. Some carry larger sonic weapons such as blastmasters or doom sirens, capable of leveling infantry formations and collapsing defensive positions through pure acoustic devastation. Jokaero digital weapons. These are among the strangest and most deceptively dangerous weapons in the Imperium of Man. Built by the mysterious Jokaero, an incredibly intelligent alien species resembling orange-furred apes, these tiny devices are masterpieces of impossible engineering. To most people, they look completely harmless. Decorative rings, gemstones, bracelets, or small pieces of jewelry worn on a finger or wrist. In reality, many are fully functional energy weapons powerful enough to kill armored soldiers in an instant. Known as digital weapons, these miniature devices contain compact versions of deadly Imperial weapon systems, including lasers, flamers, needlers, and even tiny Wraithcannons. Despite being small enough to fit on a single finger, they can unleash bursts of destructive energy capable of punching through armor, melting flesh, or burning holes through reinforced steel. The technology behind them is so advanced that even the Adeptus Mechanicus barely understands how they function. Jokaero craftsmanship often appears impossible by normal scientific standards, with weapons containing internal mechanisms far larger than the device itself should physically allow. These weapons are especially favored by inquisitors, rogue traders, and elite Imperial agents who need concealed firepower. An enemy commander may believe he is negotiating with an unarmed diplomat only to suddenly have a laser beam blast through his skull from a ring no larger than a coin. Necron Gauss Flayer. This is one of the most feared infantry weapons in the galaxy because it does not simply kill targets, it systematically erases them. The Necron Gauss Flayer reflects the cold, mechanical mindset of an ancient civilization that sees biological life as temporary and inferior. It fires a crackling green energy beam that strips matter apart layer by layer at the molecular level. Instead of relying on explosions or kinetic force, the weapon literally tears atoms away from the target in a rapid chain reaction. When the beam strikes a soldier, the destruction begins immediately. Armor plating peels apart first, followed by skin, muscle, and bone. Victims can vanish piece by piece within seconds as the weapon methodically dismantles their bodies. Even heavily armored vehicles are not safe. Sustained Gauss fire can strip tanks down to their skeletal internal structures, reducing layers of metal into drifting particles of glowing ash. Imperial Guardsmen who survive Necron encounters often describe the psychological terror of watching entire squads disappear under flashes of green light without even leaving proper corpses behind. There is rarely blood or smoke, only the eerie mechanical hum of Necron weapons calmly disintegrating living matter. What makes the Gauss Flayer especially horrifying is how emotionless it feels. Necrons do not fire in rage or panic. Their warriors simply advance in silence, firing with robotic precision while ancient technology tears enemies apart molecule by molecule. Aeldari Wraithcannon. This is without a doubt one of the deadliest distortion weapons ever created, combining advanced alien technology with a terrifying ability to manipulate reality itself. These weapons are most commonly wielded by Wraithguard, towering wraithbone constructs animated by the souls of dead Aeldari warriors preserved within spirit stones. Unlike conventional weapons that rely on bullets, heat, or explosives, the Wraithcannon functions by creating a localized distortion in space. When fired, the weapon briefly tears open reality itself, forming a violent rupture that collapses inward. Anything caught within the distortion field can simply vanish. Infantry, armored vehicles, and even massive war machines may be swallowed whole or ripped apart as space folds around them. In some cases, targets disappear instantly without leaving behind wreckage or remains. Larger enemies may be partially severed as the distortion field collapses unpredictably through armor and flesh alike. The weapon is literally the Eldar's quiet answer to everything. Compared to the loud brutality of Imperial or Ork weaponry, the Wraithcannon has often no roaring plasma blast and no dramatic impact, only the sudden absence of whatever stood in the weapon's path moments earlier. Distortion technology is feared throughout the galaxy because conventional armor offers little protection against it. A tank's thick plating, a space marine's power armor, or even monstrous alien biology means almost nothing when reality itself is being torn open. Tyranid Stranglethorn Cannon. This unique cannon is a living bioweapon grown by the hive mind for suppressing enemy infantry. The weapon resembles a massive organic cannon made from muscle tissue, chitin, and pulsing sacs filled with thorn-covered seed pods. Tyranid creatures carrying the weapon fire these pods across the battlefield using violent muscular contractions. Upon impact, the pods burst open into clouds of razor-sharp thorns and rapidly expanding tangles of living vines. Enemy soldiers are pinned, impaled, or dragged down beneath writhing masses of organic growth. The weapon is especially effective against tightly packed infantry formations, where entire squads can become trapped beneath walls of barbed vegetation and piercing thorns. Like many Tyranid weapons, the Stranglethorn cannon feels less like machinery and more like an angry alien ecosystem unleashed in the middle of a war zone. Harlequin's Kiss. The Eldar Harlequins are the acrobatic warrior servants of the Laughing God, performing lethal dances across the battlefield. Their strangest weapon is the Harlequin's Kiss, which looks deceptively benign. It is a sleek, silver, streamlined tube strapped to the warrior's forearm, tapering down to a needle-sharp tip. To the untrained eye, it looks like a fancy dueling bracer. The horror begins when the Harlequin punches an enemy. The tip punches through armor plating and skin, and a high-pressure chemical release triggers a monomolecular wire tightly coiled inside the chamber. This wire is incredibly long, miles of it packed into a microscopic space, and sharper than a scalpel. Once inside the victim's flesh, the wire instantly uncoils and spins at hundreds of thousands of revolutions per minute. It acts like a high-speed blender operating inside a closed container. In a fraction of a second, the wire whips through muscle, bone, arteries, and internal organs, reducing the target's insides to a smooth, uniform liquid. Because the skin remains mostly intact for the first few seconds, the victim becomes a literal walking leather sack filled with liquefied biological soup. The Harlequin simply glides away, laughing melodically, as the enemy commander suddenly deflates into a sloshing puddle of red goo on the floor. It is the ultimate fusion of high art elegance and grotesque, bone-chilling butcher shop horror. Tzeentchian Warpfire Thrower. Warpfire is one of the most terrifying weapons associated with Tzeentch, the chaos god of change, mutation, sorcery, and madness. Unlike ordinary fire, Warpfire is not fueled by chemicals or promethium. It is raw warp energy unleashed directly into real space, twisting both matter and reality itself. This unnatural flame is most commonly used by the Flamers of Tzeentch, bizarre demonic entities that spew torrents of magical fire from constantly shifting bodies. Sorcerers of the Thousand Suns Legion also wield warp flamers and other warp-infused weapons capable of producing similar effects. What makes Warpfire so horrifying is that it does not kill in predictable ways. Victims struck by the flames may burn, mutate, crystallize, dissolve, or suffer catastrophic physical transformations within seconds. Flesh can fuse together into tangled masses of muscle and bone. Limbs may stretch into unnatural shapes while armor melts directly into the wearer's body. The effects are completely unstable because Warpfire obeys the chaotic laws of the warp rather than normal physics. Two soldiers standing side by side may suffer entirely different fates from the same blast. One may collapse into ash instantly, while another mutates into a screaming mass of constantly changing flesh. Those exposed to prolonged warp corruption can eventually devolve into chaos spawn, the mindless creatures twisted beyond recognition by uncontrolled mutation. Warpfire perfectly represents Tzeentch himself, unpredictable and horrifying. It is not simply a weapon designed to destroy the body, but one capable of erasing identity and physical form all at once. Thanks for watching until the end. Click here to check out another video and see you in the next one.